Okay, good morning and a good tavach. Sorry it took me so long to get my act together over here. We learned Lili Nishmas, Yaakov Zev ben Yehuda Aryeh, Rivka bas Yaakov Yosef, Tziv Yemirim bas God, Yosef ben Tzim ben Yaakov Zev, and for a great shidduch for Chai Tzivya bas Shoshana Gittel. We learned Lili Nishmas, Yaakov Chaim ben Abba, Esther bas Yonah, Avram ben Shmuel HaKayin, and Refuah Shalema for Liba bas Anya. We're sponsored by A.B. Spry. We're also sponsored for the spiritual, physical, and emotional protection for Yeshua Menachem Mendel ben Bela Shendel Rivka. We're sponsored by Berish Gesseman, Refuah Shalema for Shoshana bas Adina, and by Mark Frankel, Leila Nushmas Yisrael Tzvi ben Chaim Yeshua Falik. The Neshama should have an aliyah. We are learning a Zevachim Daf, Daf Chav Vav. That's the ineffable name, the Yud Kei Vav Kei. And we learn Taka to be Mekayim the mitzvah v'dibar tabam la'asais nachas ruach liyotzreinu. We're holding on the bottom line of Chafei Amid Beis. So the Gemara takes us through certain scenarios. Amar Rab Ami, Amar Rab Elazar. Hi bifnim v'raglea b'chutz. If, let's say, the animal is inside the Azara and its feet are outside the Azara. Now, outside the Azara is pasal b'yaitze. Chatach, if he cut off the feet, v'achikach shachat, and then he shechted, so then when he shechted it, nothing was outside, ksheira. Now the Gemara is going to ask, but if he cut off the feet, it becomes a balmum. Shachat v'achikach chatach, but if he shechted, and only then he cut off the feet, then it's puzzle. Now the reason why is because since when he shechted it, the feet were outside, the blood from outside mingled with the blood inside, and then when he does the Kabbalah, he's getting blood that was nifsal b'yaitze. Then the Gemara says, Chatach v'achkat shachat. The Gemara asks incredulously, what's going on over here? Shachat, huh? Says the Gemara, Chatach v'achkat shachat ksheira? How can it be kosher if you cut off the legs? Balmum kamet makriv. He's offering a balmum, a blemished animal. The animal has to be tomim. Ela ema, read as follows. He did the shchita, and then chatach, if he cut off the legs, v'achakach kibel ksheira. Because since he cut off the legs before he did the Kabbalah, so he cut away the blood that was from outside. But kibel, but if he caught the blood, v'achakach chatach, and afterwards he cut it off, psula, because there was already blood from outside, which mixes with the blood inside, and that disqualifies the Kabbalah Adam. Says the Gemara, wait a second. Chatach v'achkach kibel ksheira? If he cut off the leg and then he did the Kabbalah, it's kosher. Remember, we said that if you nick the ear after the shechita, it's no good, because it has to be hapar the way it was before. V'hamar Rav Zera hatzayrim oizen. If you nick the ear, b'bechar v'achikach kibel damai, and then catch the blood puzzle. Why? Shenema v'lokach midam hapar. It has to be par shoya kfar. It has to be the way it was initially when you shechted it. It has to be otomim even when you do the Kabbalah Saddam. So Rav Chisda has now a different way where you could solve the problem without making it a mum. Amar Rav Chisda, Amar Avimi, chotech be'ever, you cut by the limb away the meat and all the blood vessels, ad shemagia le'etzem, until you reach the bone. So therefore, it's a way to do it without making it a mum. However, kibel v'achakach chotach psula. If you cut the blood, and only then you cut it away, it's possible. So the Gemara says, why? Because of the blood that was outside. Now, that's not blood, that was by the neck. That's blood that was absorbed in the foot. So, shmat mino dam hamuvla be'ivarim, we see blood that's even absorbed in the foot. Damu has a status of lifeblood. Says, well, maybe not. Maybe it's not the blood, but it's the fat, the shamnunis. And basar is possible b'yaitze. And that goes through and intermingles with the blood and comes out. Says the Gemara, Dilma mishum shamnunis. But that gets us involved in another question. You see, kachim kalam like shlomim, after the zrika, you could take the basar out and eat it all over Yerushalayim. Does that mean that by kachim kalam basar before zrika is possible b'yaitze, even though later it will be allowed to be taken out? Shmam ino, do you want to prove from here that besar kachim kalam sheyotzel l'fnei zrika's dam that goes out before the zrika is possible, even though afterwards it's destined to be allowed to be eaten in Yerushalayim? Says the Gemara, no, we're not talking about kachim kalam. Doma b'kachim kachim. We're only talking about kachim kachim, which could never go out. Right? Kachim kachim can only be eaten b'zichrei kahuna in the azara. Now, Tan Rabbana, kachim kachim, Tan Rabbana, kachim kachim, shchitasim b'tzafin. We know that all kachim kachim, like a chatas, like an ashim, like an oila, the shchita has to be on the north of the mizbeach. The kibel daman b'klei sharis b'tzafin, and the blood has to be caught in a klei sharis on the north. Now, what happens if Yitzi Amad B'darim, he's standing in the south, v'hoishit yadai l'tzafin, and sticks his hand to the north of the altar, v'shachat. Says the Gemara, that's okay, that's good. That's good, because the Gemara is going to dash in the pasuk, v'shachat oisai, that only any animal has to be b'tzafin. He doesn't have to be b'tzafin. So, again, Amad B'darim, if he was standing in the south, v'hoishit yadai l'tzafin, v'shachat shchitas ekseira. But that drasha v'shachat ekseira is only by shchita. Kibel, but if he was standing in the south and caught the blood in the north, that's no good. Kabbalah say psula. By the Kabbalah, the kohen has to be on the north. But if he put in his head and his entire body into the north, even though part of his body, a minority of his body is in the south, that's okay. Kilu nichnas kulai, rubai kikulai, and that's good. Perkusa, if the animal was shechted in the north and it went into death throes, the Yatzisa L'darim, and went out to the south, the Chazra, and went back in Ksheira, because it was slaughtered in the north, and you slaughtered it in the north. The fact that it went out into the Darim doesn't disqualify it like if it went out of the Azara. Kachim Kalim, this is the lesser holy kachim, like shlomim, like a bechar, like ma'aser behema. Kachim kalim, shchitasen bifnim. The shchita is anywhere in the azara. The kibel dam b'klei sharis bifnim, and you got to catch the blood in the azara. Amad b'chutz, if you were standing outside, out of the azara. V'yichnes yadei lefnip, and you put your hand inside v'shachat, so you fulfill v'shachat oisai, that the animal's inside, shchitas ksheira. Kiba, but if you're standing outside, Kabbalah psula, because by Kabbalah it doesn't have this drasha of oisai. Hichnes roishe v'ruba, even if you bring your body and your head and the majority of your body into the azar, but part of it is outside, ki'ilu loy nichnas, because the Gemara says, it says, b'voyam eloi el moyed, ad sheyavo kulai, you have to completely be inside. Perkus of yatsa, if it goes into death throes and it goes outside, l'chutz b'chazra psula, because once it goes outside, it's nifsal b'yaitze. So the Gemara says, but you see from over here, that is a psul of yaitze by kachim kalim. Because it says over here, it's talking about kachim kalim. Shema mina b'sar kachim kalim sheyatzel l'fnei srikas damim psulim. Because here we're talking about kachim kalim, we're talking about shchitasa b'chol makom ba'azara. Right? So we're talking about kachim kalim, and it says that if it jumps outside, it's possible. So you see that there's a psul yaitze by kachim kalim. Says Gemara, no, we're not talking about the basar. The basar maybe won't be disqualified because it goes out eventually after Zrika. We're talking about the sacrificial portions. Says the Gemara, Dilma ba'alya, the tail, the yoseres hakaveh, the diaphragm, we used to call it the lobe of the liver, Ushtei kloyes, those sacrificial portions never are allowed to go outside, so those get disqualified if they go outside. Now, just getting underway on a Motzi Yom Tov, Ushpiz in the Yosef HaTzadik. And you know what? Let's start welcoming in people. Wow. As I open my eyes, I see there are 30 Zoomers here. Shimon Klein, A.B. Spry, Yaakov Warman, Barry Cement, Yitzi Fuchs, Irving Fishbaum, Mel Zachter, Dr. Guy, Danny Vogel, Yisrael Fisher, Michal Akhtar, Rabbi Kanil, who's great to have, Nachman, Rebel Yafi, Dr. Eisenberg, Mark Frankel, Menachem Yemansky, the one and only Eddie Chazan, the one and only Mo Kushner, Rabbi Kranz, Jonathan Gross, who it's great to have, really great to have. Yitzi Muller, Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, beaming in from Florida, Moshe Lehman, Stephen Holtzman, Ilya Shutman, Chaim Braun, Richard Rosenzweig, David Helfgott. Here in Shul, we have Berish Kesselman, Herschel Waldner, and Ruvain Shannon, and Reb Halpert to hold the fort down here at our flagship station at the Aguda Fairways. So now, Boy minei avua de Shmuel mishmuel. The father of Shmuel inquired of Shmuel. He bifnim v'ragleha b'chutz ma'u. What if the animal is inside and its feet are on the outside? Says the Gemara, that's no good. Amalek siv evium la Hashem. It has to be brought into Hashem. Ache kula lefnim. Now, this is the stuff that, that a guy like Mark lives on. Tola v'shachat mahu. What if they suspended the animal in the air? It wasn't resting on the ground. They suspended the animal in the air, and they shechted it. What's the din? So Amalei. So he says, what's the difference? It's in the Azara, Ksheira. Amalei told him, no, ishtabshis. You're making an error. But inon shchita al yerach, it has to be on the side of the altar. And since it's suspended in the air, it's not on the side of the altar. Veleka, it's no good. Now this is perfect for Mark. This is a run-of-the-mill question for Mark. Nitla v'shachat ma'u. What if they suspended Mark in the air and he shechted? Right? Danny is laughing. Mark isn't laughing. That's a regular routine thing for Mark. when they talk about people hanging around, he takes it literally. So they suspend him in the air and he shechs. Amalei, so now he said psula, that's puzzle. So Amalei said again ishtapshus, again an error. Why? Because shchita al yerach, the shechting, the animal has to be on the side of the altar. V'loi sheichet, the sheichet could be hanging around in the air. V'loi sheichet al yerach. Nitla v'kibel ma'u. Okay, so what about if we suspend Yitz, the Kayin, in the air and he catches the blood? Amalek Sheira. He says, kosher. Oh boy, this is 3 strikes and he's out. Amalek Ishtapshis, it's no good that he's hanging around. Why? Because ain't derech sheris bekach. You see, shchita is not an avodah, but Kabbalah is an avodah. And as an avodah, you can't do it when you're hanging around in the air. Tola v'kibel ma'u. What happens if they hang the animal and he catches the blood? Amalei psula. Oh boy, this is a 4-timer. Amalei ishtapshis. It's a mistake. Why? Because it says al yerech by shchita. It doesn't say it by kapala. Ishtapshis shchita al yerech. It says al yerech hamizbeach only by shchita. Kabbalah al yerech, v'lo kabbalah al yerech. It doesn't say kabbalah on the side of the mizbeach. So you got to be careful over here. It got 4 things wrong over here.
His father was just testing him?
Yeah. Now, and for Michal Avram, who's just joining us, we are on the first wide line on 26a. The first wide line on Chavav Amud Aleph.
Thank you.
Now, Amar Abaya says differently. Abaya says, B'kache kachim, by kache kachim, kulan psulois. It's all puzzle, bar minitla v'shachat, except for the example of where the kayin is suspended in the air and shechs. Kayin suspended in the air and shechs is not a problem because it doesn't say al yerach by the kayin. And it is not a problem of derech sheris because shchita is not a type of sheris. By kache kalim, it doesn't say anything about yerech. So they're kulan kasheris, they're all kosher, bar min nitla v'kibel, except for the case where he's suspended and catches the blood, because where he's suspended and it catches the blood, that's not derech sheris, that's not the way to serve. Amarava, maishna tola v'kibel b'kachim kalim. Why is it if you suspend the animal and you catch the blood by kachim kalim d'ksheira? Why? The aver pnim kepnim dami, because the ear space of inside is like inside. B'kache kachim nami, where it's tola v'kibel, where you hang the animal and catch the blood, that's also good because aver tzafin ketzafin dami. Elama Rava bein b'kachim kachim bein b'kachim kalim kshevis. Both by kachim kachim and kachim kalim they're kosher. Bar min tola v'shachat b'kachim kachim, except for the case where they suspend the animal and shech by kachim kachim. That's not good because by kachim kachim it says it has to be al yerach hamazbeach on the side of the mizbeach, and nitla v'kiba where you suspend the kayin and he does the Kabbalah, that's no good, bein b'kachim kachim, bein b'kachim kalim, because Kabbalah you need to do derech sherish in a way of serving, and it's not the way of serving to be catch the blood when the kayin is suspended in the air. Now,
what does it say that?
What?
Does it say not it's normal way? Don't the feet have to be on the ground? Why are they using that as a reason? The feet are not on the ground. So is that what they mean when they said it's not sheris b'kach?
Well, you see, could be when you're standing on a keli, right? So there, when you do the avodah standing, you have to touch the karka. Maybe when you're suspended, you don't have to have that klei shares, so it's not a chesaron of klei shares, it's a chesaron of ein derech sheres bekach. Now, Boy minei Reb Yirmiyah Reb Zera. Reb Yirmiyah inquired of Reb Zera. Oh, this is something that could happen to Barry any day of the week. Hu bifnim, he's inside, v'tzitzisai b'chutz, and his ponytail is outside. So, Mao, is that a chesaron because his hair is hanging outside? So Amalei Lav Amrit Ve'evia Hashem. Didn't we say you should come into Hashem? Kulai Lifnim. It has to be entirely, not just Rosh Verubai. Hachanami Bavayam El Oil Mayed. The Kayan has to come into the Oil Mayed. Achiyave Kulai Oil Mayed. It has to be entirely in. If his ponytail is on the outside, it's no good. Okay, just getting underway with, I'll tell you, I was by my son and busy with his family, and I was preparing these tublat throughout Shabbos, and it's a heavy tublat. It's a really good way to spend a ushpizin of Yosef. It says, you know, Yosef is Yosef because of learning. It says, "Vayava Yosef haboisa la'asais malachtai." When he came in and he was going to be tempted with the wife of Potiphar, and she was the ultimate temptress, it says it's unbelievable. It says that Yosef came in to do his malacha, and the Medrash says, what was Yosef's malacha? Learning. It was learning that protected him. Learning protected him. Barasi Yetzahara, Barasi Torah Tavlinla. We have no idea the temptation that Yosef HaTzadik went through. You know, he had to muster everything. He had to have Dmus Dyuknai Shel Aviv. He had to see the image of his father. So, you know, somebody says, it's not fair. If when I'm about to sin, I would see a miraculous Dmus Dyuknai of a tzaddik, I also wouldn't sin. And the answer is, it's not a magic. He trained himself to have the image of his father before him. Now, there is a tremendous philosophical question over here. Very tremendous philosophical question. And that is, if he had the Musdyuknai Shel Aviv, why didn't he have Shivisi Hashem L'negdi Summit? That's what it says. You should have Hashem before you at all time. So you'll ask, why did Yosef need Yaakov to be before him? Let him have Hashem before him. You know, it's like Herschel says, I had the Demus Yukna of Reb Shlomo Mebavah. What Reb Shlomo Mebavah? What about Reb Shlomo Mebavah's Rebbe? The Rebbeinu Shalom. Why Reb Shlomo Mebavah? And the answer to this question is that it's easier to conjure up that which you've seen than that which you didn't see. So of course Yosef thought about the Rebbeinu Shalom, but that wasn't as powerful. He never saw the Rebbeinu Shalom. He didn't have an image of the Rebbeinu Shalom, but the image of his father was able to stop him. That's a lesson. And he said, what kind of madrega on you? You think about your Rebbe. Think about your Rebbe's Rebbe, the Rebbeinu Shalom. It's not easy to think about the Rebbeinu Shalom. Huh? Right? Says Meracha. That's all Herschel has to do. Is he has to picture in his mind Reb Shlomo Mebavah on Yom Kippur. How could you sin? You picture Reb Shlomo, how could you sin? It's not possible. Not possible.
Is that why we say seeing is believing? That's
correct. That's Ein Adayim Shmiya L'Riyah. That's what seeing and believing is. You know, once you've seen Barry. But anyway, so now, Zok the Heilige Mishnah. Nosnoi al gabi akevesh. If he put the blood, instead of doing it on the Mizbeach, he put it on the ramp. Or Shalai Keneged Yisait. You're supposed to, the 1 amma base before the Mizbeach indents in is only primarily on 2 sides. If he put the blood on a wall doesn't have a Yisait. Now we also said there was a Chuta Sikra, a red line, that bisected the height of the Mizbeach. Most Karbanas had to be below the Chuta Sikra. Some are above the Chuta Sikra. So Nasan Esanitanan Lamata Lamala, he put those that were supposed to be below above, or Vesanitanan Lamala Lamata, or those that were supposed to be above, he put below. Vesanitanan Bifnim, there are certain rare Karbanas that the blood has to be inside the Kodesh, like the Par Helam Dovashil Tzibur, the Par Kayin Mashiach, a carbon for Avodah Zarah. So those that are supposed to be inside, b'chutz, he put on the outer altar. Vesanitanim b'chutz, and most karbanos which are supposed to be on the outside, b'fnim. So where you did all these wrong things, puzzle, the carbon is puzzle, but ve'ein by karas. If you eat it, there's no karas. It's not like pigel. So now Shmuel tells a very big novelty. Others will disagree with Shmuel. But Shmuel says that when we say it's puzzle, it means that you're not allowed to eat the meat. But if they put the blood on wrong, the bailam get kapara, b'diavad. I'm a Shmuel puzzle buzzer. The meat is puzzle. Aval bailam niskapru. But the owners receive atonement. My timer. What's the reason? Says the Gemara, the Amakra, it says in the Pasuk, Vani nesativ lochem ala mizbeach lechaper. And I gave to you that once it goes on the mizbeach, even on the ramp, it affords atonement. Kevin shigeh dam lemizbeach, even though it's the wrong place, below instead of above, on the ramp instead of on the wall or on the horns. Niskapra bailam says the Gemara. Well, if it says it's kapara, so then the meat should also be permitted. Iachi baser nami says the Gemara. Amakra lechaper lechapara nisativ. I gave it to you that it should be for an atonement, but not that it should be permitted. So the Gemara says. So obviously, when we say that it achieves kapara, alma kasavar shaloi b'mekaymai kimekaymai dami. That even if it's shaloi b'mekaymai, it's like in its proper place, vis-a-vis to at least achieve kapara. So the Gemara asks, Tanan be'idach pirkin, the Gemara says, we learned in the next parak, something to look forward to, Tanan be'idach pirkan, nosna ala kevish, if you put the blood on the ramp, or shaloi keneged hayisayid, or not where there's a base, nasan esanitanu lamata lamala vesanitanu lamala lamata, you put that which is below above, or that which is above you put below, vesanitanu b'fnim b'chutz, or that which was supposed to be inside you put outside, vesanitanu b'chutz b'fnim. So you did it wrong. Did it wrong. Eddie, you did it wrong. Is Eddie still here? Yeah, Eddie, you did it wrong. Wherever Eddie is, I think he's in Honolulu or Tacoma, or maybe he's in New Orleans. Is it Mardi Gras time? So anyway, you see, mum's the word. He's not telling us. Again, he's on the run. Anyway, so Eddie did it wrong. Supposed to be below, we put it above, below, we put it not opposite the base. So says the Gemara, Eddie could save it. Im yesh dam hanefesh, if there's still lifeblood gurgling at the neck, yazer akosher v'yikabel. Let him let the kosher come and catch it. Now, we'll see that Mishnah is talking about that initially it was done by Eddie. And Eddie was a czar, right? But he put it in the wrong place. So if there's lifeblood left, so let a kosher come and catch it. But says the Gemara, but if putting it in the wrong place is good, then why do it over again? Now you'll say, well, no, do it over in order that the meat should be permitted. That you want to do it over to make the meat kosher, because we said that the kapara nesativ, but not it should be eaten. So if there's still lifeblood, do it over properly so that the meat should be able to be eaten. Says the Gemara, could you do that? Could you have that it achieved kapara already, but you're doing it just to make the meat permitted? Says the Gemara, Mika Zrika, is there a Zrika Doloi Mechaperes that doesn't achieve the kapara, because the kapara b'diavad was already achieved, and it's Rishaya Basar, and it permits the meat ba'achila? Says the Gemara, you're right. Idiyave kosher, if initially it was a kohen that did it, and he did it wrong, so it achieves kapara, there's no reason to do it again, because doing it again won't help. It's already mechaper, and to permit the basar where it's not an act of kapara, that won't happen. But I gave it away. In the second part, it says Yazer HaKosher. That means in the first time, besides doing it wrong, Eddie was also a zar. Eddie, when he put it on the first time, he was a puzzle. So that's not good at all. And that's why if you have blood left, you could do a do-over. Says the Gemara, but wait a second, now we have a different problem. If Eddie did it the first time as a puzzle, then it should become rejected. And once it's rejected, you can't fix it. It should be rejected. V'tanan, because we learned, if they catched it with the machshav of chutz l'zmanei and chutz l'mekayma, to shecht it after its time, or out of its place, im yesh dam hanefesh, if there's more lifeblood, yazer hakosher v'yakabel. But that only works for Kabbalah. Kibla in. Only where could you fix it if you had a machshava psul? That's only by the catching. Zor koiloi, but not if you threw it with a machshava of chutz l'zmanei to eat it after its time or outside of its place. You cannot fix it. My timer. Lav mishum dichui. Lav mishum davi dichui, because it's rejected. Says the Gemara, no. The reason why you can't fix it is because when you're zoyrik with a machshava of pigel, that disqualifies the animal. Loi mishum depasul b'machshava. So the Gemara says, so then why is it only by zrika? It should be by Kabbalah too. If you're mekabel with a machshava of chutz l'zmanei, Kabbalah is one of the 4 avodas Adam. Iachi Kabbalah nami. And furthermore, does machshava passel? Machshava of Eddie, who's a zar, doesn't passel. V'amar Rava ein machshava me'eles ela b'misha roi la'avoida. Only one who's allowed to do the avoida, not Eddie, not a zar. U'bedavar roi la'avoida. You have to use the right materials. Like for the omer, you can't use wheat. There has to be a kosher mizbeach. Says, you're right. Loi tema zor koiloi. Don't say that it's only by Kabbalah, but not by Zrika. The truth of the matter is is that when it says that kiblu, that when it says, if it was done chutz l'zmanei and chutz l'mekaymai, if you have blood left, you could do it over. It's not by Kabbalah yes and Zrika no. No. By Zrika you would be able to do it over as well. If Eddie did the shchita with a machshava of chutz l'zmanei, then you wouldn't be able to fix it. Why? Because Eddie, as a zar, can do the shchita because shchita is kosher b'zar. Then, when he has a machshava of pigel, then he disqualifies it, and it wouldn't help to do it over again. Says Gemara, my kamash malan, the puzzle machshava, that it's disqualified by machshava. Tanina, we already learned that. Leficha chein paisim machshava. Says the Gemara, no, that's what it's coming to teach us. That only by shchita will a man like Eddie passel with a machshava of chutz l'zmanei. But if he did the Kabbalah of the Zrika, he wouldn't passel with machshava, because the only person that could passel with machshava is somebody that's roy l'avoda. Eddie is not roy to do the Kabbalah or the Zrika because he's a non-kayin. Then he wouldn't passel. Hakamash Malon de Kabbalah ve'elech loy passel machshava. My timer, what's the reason? As we said, Kidarava, because ein machshava me'eles ela b'misha roy l'avoda u'b'davar roy l'avoda. Now to swing back, because you could really lose the train of thought over here. We'll swing back and we'll see that the reason why it's puzzle as machshava. It's not puzzle as dichoy. It's not puzzle because it's rejected. And therefore, since it's not puzzle with rejection, so then that's why it says that if there's dama nefesh left over, so then you could do it over again and save it. And what it means, do it over again and save it, is because initially it was done by Eddie, a non-kayin. So there, if there's lifeblood left over, it can be done over by Eddie, by a kayin, and be saved. Okay. Any questions?
Zor's machshava is moelas.
Zor's machshava is moelas only by shchita. The shchita is not an avodah.
And for Kohen, he can do pigul by shchita, Kabbalah.
All four avodah sadam. Correct. Now, we just pause a moment to turn over the tape.